After a couple of rounds on European soil, the radical European SimRacing Championships ventures to the Golden Coast and gets ready for our 3 races tonight, early in the championship swing. Hi folks, Arjuna Kankipati alongside of Kevin Ellis Jr. as we get set for the action tonight with trips to Monza, Mugello, Spa, and Brands Hatch for our drivers already in the books. And Kevin, this WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, so much undulation, the corner names speak of so much history as well. Going to be a challenge for our drivers to carve their way through tonight's proceedings.
Yeah, this is one of the most challenging circuits that these guys will come to this season. It has got multiple, very dangerous corners. There's not a whole lot of room to make moves. Turn 1 is going to be the main area of concern for these drivers today in terms of making a move. But of course, we've got the legendary corkscrew as well, which I can't imagine will be too comfortable in these types of cars.
No, definitely not. The stomach falling from underneath you, but we're nearing the halfway mark of the championship already. Next time out, we'll swing over to Adelaide, continue the World Tour before a couple of more European rounds. Nürburgring and Silverstone before back and forth. Mosport, Barcelona, and Charlotte Roval. We'll rack up the air miles on our way to wrapping up the championship. Let's talk about how the points are laid out now with those 3 rounds in the books. Alfredo Marlo leads in the pro standings, but only 9 points clear of James Barry, but the 2 clear of Peter Ivanyayi and Hubbard Gullikskin by a decent margin. Top 5 separation, not too much between 3rd and 5th, so the likes of George Gonzaga, Dennis Karakopoulos, and Larson, Taverin, and Bjorklund will be trying to close in. Let's talk about the pro teams as well before we touch on AMS. Almost 22-point advantage for Inner iRacing team over the Ugly Frog Racing group, while IGL Coatings SRP Racing team, a little bit more separation through the next couple, the 2nd and 3rd Inner teams, 5th and 6th. But let's talk about AMS, where there are 1 breakaway driver and then lots of fighting behind. Franek Sikorsky, we'll see him mix it up amongst some of the pros, I would assume, today. Gabriel Berger, Luke Crowley, Yevon Saiko, and Eric Benson in the midst of the effective fight for 2nd right now in the AM standings. But we are very early through the season, so let's quickly touch on the teams as well, where Project 91 Racing Team, courtesy of Sikorsky's Gap, lead U Amateurs with Team Slow-Mo, and the 11/10 Racing Team a little bit further behind with SimRacing Norway, the rest of the top 5. Qualifying is underway, and this is a track in which I think you build up in qualifying because there's no modern runoff on either side of the track to allow you to push a little bit too far. No, instead it's gravel, it's dirt that will invalidate your lap, and in some worst cases, Kevin, lead you straight into a wall.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is definitely one of the circuits that you really have to build up to. As you say, there's absolutely no runoff anywhere at this circuit. So, it's a really intimidating circuit to try and drive on, sorry. These guys, it's a high commitment circuit. There's a lot of undulations, a lot of gradient changes and positive corners. So you can't just go straight out there lap 1 and put it right on the limit. It's definitely what you've got to build up to over the course of the session, and just hope that by the end you've got a bit more confidence in the rest.
Ryan Stringer dived down through Rainy Curve, the penultimate corner now of the lap, the right-hander, before you put the foot back to the floor and bring the car over to the right-hand side. Still waiting for, I think, the 2nd and 3rd lap for these drivers, which seems to be that little bit quicker. Ryan Stringer is on his 2nd timed attempt, and it will put him 8th on the combined board, but only momentarily. It's Peter Ivanyayi that leads. Alfredo Marlo now only a 1/4 of a second off, but James Barry puts himself in between the 2 of them. 19 times on the board. We've got 21 drivers in the field, and one of the format changes for 2026 means that we've got 3 races tonight. A heat race, then a last chance qualifier, all leading to our final feature race of the night. The heat race will see 15 drivers, Kevin, move straight forward, so track position and staying out of trouble, and it starts here in qualifying, is quite important for these drivers.
Yeah, this is not really a circuit that you can cut through a field efficiently. For these guys, there will be quite a lot of pressure on this qualifying session, especially for the guys who are typically a little bit further down the field and maybe around that cut zone, where potentially they won't advance straight through. So yeah, it's a pretty scary combination, being at Laguna Seca and obviously having the elimination looming over you as well. So yeah, it's tricky. If you're quick around here, very quick. If you're struggling a little bit, typically you might see the gaps be a bit bigger than a more forgiving circuit, should we say.
I mentioned Franek Sikorsky. Well, Am driver now leads overall in qualifying. That's the nature of these races where there are two different stories being told on track. And Sikorsky's competition now a full second off as Ivan Yai climbs the hill up into what, at least for the time being, has been unofficially renamed into the Zanardi corkscrew. Dive down in towards Rainy Curve. This is one of the places where you can most tell that iRacing's scan of the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca maybe a decade or so old and missing some of the different changes that have been made around the track. That includes how much of the runoff you can take on the right side before being pushed out into gravel. But I mean, now he takes all of the track on offer, and he's going to go about a tenth quicker than Franek Sikorsky. Make it 2/10, in fact. So the Ugly Frog Racing bright yellow Radical, no missing it out on track, and now back on top.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth there. I was going to say there's going to be no difficulty spotting those guys today. They look quite a bit like a high visibility jacket out on track with that paint scheme. So, but no, it'd be good for them. Vanya will be happy with that qualifying lap, I imagine. But I'm just amazed by the gap of between Franek Sikorsky and the rest of the AM field. I mean, he's really stamped his authority on this group early this season. He's really continuing that in qualifying in this session, as we saw Alfredo Malo going to P3 not too long ago, and I think that's Tavai Ryan up the P5 now as well. So yeah, James Barry will be looking to improve a little bit as well. He's down in P7 at the moment. He'll be wanting to get a little bit closer to Malo just to keep that championship battle as close as possible.
Not large gaps though by any means. Top 10 split by 3.5 tenths. Front row now split by 15 thousandths as Kyriakopoulos puts himself on the outside of the front row. There comes Jorge Gonzaga. Insert name here on the back, so sponsorship available on that car. 17.558. That's about a hundredth of a second slower than his fastest lap. But I wonder now, 4 laps in the session, there's only a handful of drivers that still have opportunities to improve. So effectively what this is becoming is the last moments of an extended test session, and that includes the inner Argon rather, black with orange and green highlights, now diving down in through the corkscrew. Good opportunity to also practice a pit entry, Kevin, because these Radicals have been slightly limited on fuel capacity, and especially in the first of our 45-minute races, we'll expect those pit stops to play their part. And Dennis is going to give us a great view. It's a difficult pit entry, as Romain Grosjean found out a couple of years ago in a Honda Civic.
This is definitely one of the most unusual and challenging pit entries that you might see, and as you mentioned, over the years, especially in the real world, we have seen some pretty massive shunts here. But I'm pretty sure there was a year in Pesk where we raced here, and there was a slight incident coming out of the second to last corner, and someone actually crashed into the pit lane and went over the barrier. I remember that one fondly. They sort of bounced over the barrier and then came across the circuit in front of everyone. So it's it's definitely one of the more unusual pit entries, and I wouldn't be surprised to see 1 or 2 guys have an issue in there today.
Incredible, flipping over the barrier. That's taking it to another level. Let's take a quick look at the starting lineup. Remember, for the first of our races tonight, where 15 drivers will move straight to the feature at the end of the night. Peter Ivanyai for Ugly Frog Racing will lead us to the green, in the very green Ugly Frog Racing number 13. Dennis Kyriakopoulos will start alongside, while Havard Gullikson and Alfredo Malo slot into row 2. The best of the AMs, Franek Sikorsky, said he was going to mix it up with the pros, but that is a blinder of a qualifying effort. Out inside of row 3, alongside of Christopher Tavarian in that number 58. Sally Rattanen has James Barry for company, only a quarter of a second off the pace on the outside of row 4, with Jorge Gonzaga and Kjetil Larsen, your top 10. Kim-Andre Bjorklund and Gabriel Berger 11th and 12th. Now we are starting to get to the rest of the AM field. Luke Crowley, Ryan Stringer 13th and 14th, with Jevin Seca and Menno de Graaf, Ole Henrik Gulliksen and Mika Henrik Hulkkonen. That's your top 18, and just 3 more. These are the drivers with the most work to do. Lars Erik Friedland, Ole Gunnar Stensrud, and Severin Stjatsiad start at the tail end of the field. And will try and pick their way through the madness here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for a 45-minute race. And 45 minutes and downforce cars like these around a track like this, Kevin, it's going to be a physical and a mental test.
Yeah, you've got to carry a lot of mid-corner speed at the circuit at the best of times, and with these cars, they are quite stiff, they're not very forgiving, and when the balance shifts in these things from understeer to oversteer, typically it's very hard to collect it. So yeah, these guys have got to stay on their toes for the next 45 minutes. I'm excited to see how this one goes, especially with James Barry starting a bit further down than he would like. So yeah, it should be a good race, but I think overtaking is going to be the Achilles heel for most of these guys.
Those weather conditions, this early in the morning, this cool, we should see a marine layer of fog, but instead it's a golden sunrise for our drivers. Off and away we go for the first of our races at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, and one side of the front row went off great, the other side not so great. Here a couple of slots down to 6th position as we funnel down through the Andretti hairpin, one of the many names talking about the illustrious history of this track. The fight for second is intense. Gulliksen going to try and hold on now on the inside. Sikorsky, rocket of a start. The best of the AMs, sits 3rd overall. But we are at the bottom of the track. We are ready to begin the climb, and it is a real climb as you flick it through the left. They are almost 4 wide behind. The AMs really tripping over each other, with James Barry and Jorge Gonzaga just in front of them as well. But we'll carve up through the left at turn 6, the scariest corner of the track, with an anti-cut curb on the inside that will spit you off into the gravel, as Ryan Stringer is done, but up to the Zanardi corkscrew for the first time. And all 21 cars, Kevin, safely through.
Done well to settle themselves down there before that kink. I was fully expecting to see a couple rows deep of 2x2, but yeah, there was only one car went off on the exit there, which was a borderline miracle. After turn 4, I was strongly considering they're going to be a massive accident there. But no, they've done well to settle themselves down, and yeah, Peter Evagno will be very happy with that start. Got himself a 6/10 gap already, and Gulliksen, of course, getting ahead of Sikorsky, so he can just fully set his sights on Evagno ahead. But yeah, I mean, what a start for Sikorsky. I mean, being an AM driver, you know, that gap in qualifying was already impressive enough, but he's managed to actually get himself into 3rd overall, which is, yeah, an absolutely remarkable start. He's having a great day so far.
These cars now settling in. Further back you go in these lines, or maybe dirty air will start to impact you, but it also means the more opportunities you'll have to save your fuel. They've all got fuel capacity limits. That's going to induce pit stops in this 45-minute race. Question will be, if you're in a battle pack, do you think you can go faster by finding some clean air around the just under 2 miles of the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca? There you can see some of the AMs in the midst of all of that traffic. These are the drivers that also have to be most concerned, because a trip down pit lane will put them directly in the path of the leaders to sweep by and put them a lap down.
Yeah, this is where the strategy game is going to come into it. Are there going to be guys who feel like they're being held up? You know, Alfredo Malo could be at the top of that list of guys who feel like they've got more pace than is currently being run. Do they potentially box, you know, drop to the very back of the pack, get themselves some clean air, try and do almost a monumental undercut, and see if they can get up some track position from there. You know, James Barry, I think, would definitely be one to consider that if the pace in front continues to stay the way that it is, and the gap continues to increase to the leaders. So, you know, if the pace is slower up front than he's maybe expecting, then that's when the overcut might come into play. But as you mentioned, with the fuel capacity limits, I think Evagny's interest will just be go as long as possible. Do not put yourself back in that traffic if you can help it. That's the worst thing you could do at this stage, especially at this circuit. You don't want to be putting yourself back there and giving yourself traffic when you really don't need to.
I was here last year when the Radical Cup North America was racing at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Got a chance to catch up with Raid and Nickel, and so interesting to talk about, especially down through the corkscrew, what it's like in these cars. The Pro and Am overlap, probably sitting 11 and 12 positions, where Kim Andre Bjorklund sits just a couple of car lengths down the road from Gabriel Berger, with then the rest of the Ams, Luke Crowley, Minna de Graaf, Evan Seco, and Ryan Stringer recovering well after slipping wide. There's one driver that's headed back to pit lanes. Not sure what's happened to Ole Gullikson. Also a slow car out of the final corner. That was Severin Statsad. So a couple of small issues, but solo car issues. Everyone, I think, quite aware of the challenges of racing wheel to wheel at this track.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. I've not seen any cars with any notable damage either. So yeah, overall a very clean and orderly start for Laguna Seca standards. It's very often that we do see accidents around here, just with how claustrophobic the nature of the circuit is, and just with no runoff whatsoever besides the final corner, which in my opinion is probably the one corner you don't need any runoff at the circuit, ironically. But you know, that's what makes this circuit so unique and such a challenge, and it's why so many drivers love and hate it.
Yeah, one thing they did, which I'm not a huge fan of, is they added runoff on the outside of the exit on turn 5. You know, the climb up underneath that bridge, just on the way towards the corkscrew. It allows you to swing a little bit wider, carry a bit more speed. And, you know, racing drivers, you offer them an inch and they'll take a yard. So that's tends to be what happens. But a train right now, you can see there's a couple of slightly larger gaps, but for the most part, first through 16th positions, not being allowed to run away just yet. And got to give, once again, the shout out to Franek Sikorsky, the Am driver, sitting up there in third. Oh, Minna de Graaf putting the power down and losing the rear end down through the Andretti hairpin.
Yeah, so easy to do. So easy to do in these cars. The rear end of these is fairly stiff, and if I remember from memory, it's been a while since I've driven one of these cars, but I do remember the differential feeling very, very tricky to manage at low speed. The car really wanted to generate some inside rear wheel spin, especially once that turbo kicked in. So yeah, I do remember there being a little bit of turbo lag, and yeah, the differential certainly doesn't do you any favours. But you know, the car may have changed since then. As we see a big lock up into the corkscrew, I think there's a car that's gone straight through it. As we see another replay of Menno de Graaf having a further problem later in the lap, and he's been clipped that time, so that will be damage for him. And what car number is that? It looks like 78, I think. So
Laguna Stensrud, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Best number in all of motorsports. I think the issue that you noted as well would have been for Dennis Kirakopoulos, because he has dropped down to 9th now. And remember, he started on the outside of the front row, and after the initial start was already 6th into the opening corner. This is the look from Stensrud, just limited time to react, and bangs the tires on the left side, just in front of where the spectators can get up towards. As we're getting closer to about 10 minutes complete in this first race of the night. Remember, 15 drivers will go straight to the feature race. Everyone else will get a chance to make it through in our last chance qualifier. Are we seeing some forced pit stops for Ole Gunnar Stensrud, or was that maybe a strategic call as well, Kevin? You can see him rolling towards pit exit now.
Yeah, I can't see any notable damage. It looked as if he was heading straight towards the pit exit cones there. It'd be interesting to see if he got a black flag. He was heading right for those big bollards. But yeah, I didn't see any notable damage. But yeah, the camera angle wasn't the most favourable one there with the bridge in the way. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this strategy plays out. I mean, if I'm in Ivanyi's shoes right now, I'm just going to keep that gap at around 1 second, just save as much fuel as you possibly can, and make sure this stint is as long as you can manage it. If I'm someone like James Barry, I'm going to be looking at that gap to those guys at the back and saying, is there a slot for me to fit into? Right now, it looks like there is. He's got about 18 seconds to Sjastad, so you know, comes in for a pit stop there. He can easily drop in behind, but of course he wants to make sure he can still get to the finish from that pit stop. We only need 1 pit stop if I recall correctly, but if it's 2, If it's a two-stopper, then I would bite at it now.
Wait and see when the best placed cars start to come down to pit lane. The leader is starting to pull a gap, by the way, so Gullikson slowing down maybe. Franek Sikorsky very, very content with how things are going. I can confirm the smoke that Kevin and his eyes had spotted was Dennis Kirakopoulos, who had gone deep in through the corkscrew, but of all the places to have a moment, he's, well, minimized the impact of that. No damage to the car, just to his position on track. James Barry sawing at the wheel through that penultimate corner, trusting the downforce, and the cambered in nature of that corner are going to tuck him into the ground. Tucked in the draft behind Larson. Fight for 7th, starting to lose some ground to the leaders. I wonder if we're reaching the point where any notion of fuel saving may be done up front is being thrown out the window.
Yeah, this is killing James Barry's race here. This is where he's going to have to play the strategy card as soon as he possibly can. He's just going to be stuck in that dirt air, not able to really make any kind of advancement on the lead. If he can get through Kjetil Larsen in the next lap or two, then he can potentially rescue this if he's got the raw pace. But right now you can see he's just a couple tyre widths wide at the apex, just with that dirt air, and it's so hard to stay close as well. It's not just the turbulent air that can really affect you, it's more the visibility. That's the scarier aspect of, especially at this circuit. We were racing here in Pest, there was very little dirt air, but it was still very difficult to pass just because you really couldn't see your reference points, and with there being no runoff as well, you're always a little bit more hesitant to bury the throttle or brake a few meters later. At the normal point, you always just tend to sort of shell up a little bit and sort of pull back and just maintain rather than go full balls to the wall, for lack of a better term. But yeah, this is James Barry's opportunity here. He's close-ish, but not close enough. If anything, Kirakopoulos will be having a go at him if he's not careful.
To what you just said, though, I put to you Lauren Heinrich, who proved last weekend that you can pass at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It will take a bit of traffic and physicality, but yeah, you could very much make your moves. Right now, we might sort of be seeing everyone entranced by the driver in front, and James Barry just running pace of Larson, and in turn, as much as Kirakopoulos has shown us the ability to punch in a lap time worthy of starting on the outside of the front row, race pace not trending that way just yet. The fight for 2nd in AM, they are 11 seconds back from Franek Sikorsky. So Luke Crowley and Gabriel Berger. This is almost like Formula 1.5 back in the day. They'll be very happy just to be fighting to be the best of the AMs not named Sikorsky.
Yeah, I'm willing to hedge a bet here and say that Sikorsky's actually being held up as well, because that gap has closed in quite dramatically over the last few laps. It went from about 7 or 8 tenths, it's now down to around 4. So we might, oh my goodness, we see a late dive up the inside into the last corner. They managed to keep it clean. As Gabriel Berger having a look at Luke Crowley, so he decided mid-braking zone that actually he was going to have a go at him, and it's done quite well though, because it's allowed him to stay close for T1. Is he going to... No, he decides to back out that time. I was going to say, is he going to cut to the inside? There's Crowley left it open, but Gabriel Berger decides better of it. But yeah, as I say, Sikorsky's closed that gap down on Gullikson. So I'm interested to see if Sikorsky actually does have the pace for the overall win. That would be an incredible achievement if it is.
It's amazing. It's an incredible turn of speed, and sometimes you just gel with the track as well, and clearly that's what Sikorsky has done this week. Alfredo Malo might want to take the opportunity to make his way forward as well, and that's where for Gullikson there's no friendliness here. He can't afford to let Sikorsky through, because then suddenly you're dealing with the championship leader right on your tail, almost 1/3 through this race. Expecting pit stops likely in another 5 or 10 minutes, depending on how much fuel was saved. There were a couple of laps where, you know, maybe cars further in the field were saving, but just looking at the lap times of the leader, Kevin, I mean, he's very consistent right now. Low 17s since the drop of the green flag.
I definitely think Ivani is full pushing it, but I want to say that Alfredo Malo, I heard a little bit of lift coast into the last corner, so yeah, you mentioned it earlier that Gullikson can't just let Sikorsky by because of where Alfredo Malo is positioned, and you know, Alfredo's been around for a long time. He's already proven so far this season that, you know, on his day he is the absolute quickest in the field. So although he's P4, you can never quite count him out. He's, as I say, very experienced, so he'll know the game. If he's not got the track position, he'll play the strategy card, and I fully expect to see Malo jump both these guys in the pit cycle. The question is, can he save enough to jump across that 2-second gap and get within range of Ivani?
We talked about pit entry, but pit exit here as well is a hairpin in and of itself, but it also spits you on the outside of the entry into turn 3. So in terms of a fight, I think you're always vulnerable on cooler tires when you're potentially left out there to either overcut or be surprised undercut by your competition. You can see a bit more separation starting now to build between all of those in the top 10. First and second split by 2.4 seconds. Fourth and fifth covered by 1.8 seconds. And then the AMs, all the fighting between Luke Crowley and Gabriel Berger. At one point they were tripping over some of the pros, but now separation for them to focus on their own fight. And only as it stands right now, 5 AMs will advance into the feature race directly. So it means that we're going to see an interesting scrap in the consolation, Kevin, between some of those AM drivers.
Yeah, it will be an interesting scrap to see which one of them can actually get the job done. Obviously, we saw Menno de Graaf have an issue earlier, and he's currently recirculating 1 lap down. We do also have cars down into pit lane now as we speak, so Sikorsky has saved the fuel, he's stayed out, but Ivani hits pit lane as well as Gullikson as well. So this will be key for Malo. He'll be hoping that Sikorsky has enough pace to make use of this overcut. This will be key for him here with this extra lap.
Well, this guarantees it's a 2-stop race as well. To get 45 minutes out of these Radical SR10s, it is going to literally be a splash of fuel. There is no need to change the tires. They will slightly cool off, which is not always the worst thing in the world of iRacing. Leader, or former race leader, releases himself off the limiter, and then just watch here as you drop down. Regular track on the right side. There's no cones in the real world to protect you from those machines. Drop down in through the pit exit. Blue cones when you're officially then racing your competition. And back onto track after about a 9.5 second pit stop for Ivani, but for Harvard Gullikson, slightly shorter pit stop. So he's closed slightly, but I think he's also very aware of Franek Sikorsky right now and wants to make sure that Sikorsky and Malo can't get the overcut here. Will they peel off and exit stage left? The Project 91 car will. Where's Alfredo Malo right into the lane as well?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of strategy that can be played here with this being a 2-stopper. Obviously, you can take slightly less fuel in this first stop, try and gain track position, have a slightly quicker stint with the lighter car, and then of course go for a slightly longer fill at the end, or alternatively you can take the longest fill possible, and then right at the end you can just do that little splash and dash. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of fuel loads people will like to go on in this second stint. Of course, in the first stint they would all have been on the same, I imagine, at full tank, as we see them start to roll off the pit lane. A 7.5 second pit stop for Malo, so he's not taking much fuel. He's decided to go for that shorter middle stint and take a slightly longer fuel in the final pit stop. So Malo is playing the track position game. Can he get out ahead of Gullikson? It's going to be close.
He's right alongside, but I think Gullikson, the green and white, slips just in front. And now with 2.2 seconds up to the leader, they're released from Franek Sikorsky. Christopher Tavarian has slipped in front as well. And I think another winner through this cycle, there was a couple of AMs with a couple of drivers, I should say, lower down through the field with lengthier stops. Jorge Gonzaga chief amongst them, 14.8 seconds. Luke Crowley's got plenty now of separation between him and Gabriel Berger. Next 15 minutes or so will be head down and trying to maximize the speed. Gullikson all over the place though, the pressure building from Mallow.
Mallow will be absolutely gutted about that. There's no doubt that he was trying to underfuel to jump both of those guys in the pit stop, give himself clear air, use that pace that we know he has to try and close in on Evagny. You know, whether the win is on or not is another question, as I think Gullikson has clipped the gravel coming out that last corner, so that will have hurt his run, and Mallow's close. This could be his opportunity. He's got to take it here.
The outside, but it's difficult down into the Andretti hairpin in these light machines. Got the downforce, they've got enough power, but not enough to really cause them too many problems. Lost about 6/10 on that lap alone, as James Barry, who is amongst those who went slightly longer on the initial pit stop, now looking in the rearview mirror. He's got it in front of Larson, Kirakopoulos, Bjorklund, 3 other of the pro contenders now all stacked up behind. The pit stops have well and truly set all these drivers loose a little bit more, and they're pushing once again.
I would be interested to see James Barry's actual pit time again, because I didn't quite catch it during the cycle. But yeah, as you mentioned, he's got ahead of Kjetil Larson. As we see a car around, that's Gullikson, so Mallow is unleashed. I would be interested to see if there's contact there, because yeah, Mallow has lost around a second, I think, if my memory serves, so potentially contact out of the corkscrew there.
Well, there was no question that he was feeling the pressure. He looked very wide on the previous lap when we were watching. Now climbed out of turn 6 and into the Zanardi corkscrew. Not close enough was Mallow to even poke alongside. As they drop down, there's a notable compression, and if you don't time the throttle application just right, spin up the rear wheels, and I think that's exactly what's happened there.
Yeah, got to get to full throttle as the car compresses. If you do it too early, you can easily get that rear wheel spin that I was talking about earlier. The differential was fairly locked up in these cars from what my memory remembers, but my memory historically has never been the best, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, definitely, yeah, you can hear it there. The RPM's just increased as it comes down the compression. He's just not quite caught the corner right, and yeah, it's resulted in a bit of a half spin. Thankfully, Mallow wasn't involved, so no damage for him. Would be interested to see what kind of pace he's got. But yeah, just going back to the James Barry situation, he did have clean air, but unfortunately for him, Gullikson is now directly ahead of him, so that clean air that James Barry had has disappeared, and that could just be another sort of thorn in his side for the rest of this stint. If he has gone for the longer fuel to try and extend this middle stint and again go for another overcut, then yeah, this could potentially throw a spanner in the works for him.
So we've got one more pit stop to come. There's no question about that. There's some pain to be felt by those that went short. There's some relief for those that went long. Jorge Gonzaga and Luke Crowley swapped for 11th and 12th positions. That means Crowley's got 2.5 seconds back to Evans Seca, with Gabriel Berger now dropping behind. So it's been a change in the podium spots in terms of where the AMs sit. Ryan Stringer is defending from Mika-Henrik Ulkkonen in what is effectively the fight to avoid a race in the LCQ, which is primarily what everybody wants to do, Kevin. This sort of format may be a bit more familiar to rallycross and things like that, but the need to avoid those sort of chaotic races, it remains even here in regular road racing.
Yeah, from my days in rallycross, I remember the dread that comes over you when you realise that you're about to go into an LCQ, because yeah, the clue's in the name, last chance qualifier, and when you've only got one more chance to make a difference, that is when the aggression comes out, and that's really when anything can happen. So yeah, they are very, very scary situations to be in, and for everyone involved, it's always hairy, because yeah, you never want to end your night early. And there's also another aspect to the LCQ as well, is it's more energy spent going through an extra race compared to everyone else. For some people, it's, you can say it's added practice and a little bit extra laps, which can sometimes help, but for the most part, the toll it can take on you mentally is quite significant, because you've got to sort of build that adrenaline and that pressure back up during qualifying and the race start, and then you've got to do it all over again as soon as you're doing it sort of 3 times in an evening with these adrenaline spikes. It can be more and more challenging to be consistent throughout the course of the evening, and especially when you get to that final where it really matters most. Sometimes the adrenaline is all out for the day. So yeah, it's a tough thing to manage, and if you can just get straight to the final from the heat race, that is obviously the ideal situation.
So closing in to that final pit stop window, we're in the last half of this opening race of the night. I gotta say, the dread that Kevin felt from being in an LCQ race, it's very different in the commentary booth, Kevin, so I'm looking forward to hearing that difference from you later, because my memories of LCQ races typically were some boneheaded moves, but usually some pretty interesting things as well. 3.2 the gap at the front of the field. Gullikson settling in nicely after that mistake down at the corkscrew, but Alfredo Marlowe's not really being able to take advantage of the clean air and close in on the race leader.
Yeah, it's clear to see that Ivani just has the pace. I mean, Mal was on a lighter fuel load. He's got the clear air, but it is not enough to make any kind of inroads on that lead. So yeah, things are looking good for Ivani now. He's just going to be in full management mode, no mistakes. Make sure you get that one last pit stop in. No mistakes on pit lane. We don't want to see you doing a Romain Grosjean in that last pit stop with the with a 3.5 second lead. So yeah, it's always looking good for Ivani up front. Sikorsky's still running well as well. He's within a second of T. Ryan. So yeah, things are looking pretty good for AM leader. He's been sitting pretty up in the top 5 all day. He's continuing to go strong.
Or Romain Grosjean, for all the many things that he could be remembered for, it's some of the more quirky things that he is going to end up being remembered for. Final 20 minutes now. I think the window probably only opens to get to the end in about 4 laps time, so still a little bit more work for our drivers to do. Remember, of the 21 that started, only Ole Gullikson is sitting in pit lane. Everyone else is out there and circulating, and that includes Menno de Graaf, who was 2 laps down and just getting himself dialed in for the consolation race that beckons. And then our final race is just 15 minutes, so that is very much going to be a sprint. There's not going to be any worry about pitting and managing the fuel situations necessarily. Instead, everyone focused on just getting to the end of this race, back down towards the final sector of the lap. Gotta say, everyone does seem to be kind of entranced right now, Kevin. There's a dearth of racing action going on.
Yeah, this is just pretty typical of Laguna Seca, to be honest. It's, as I was saying earlier, the lack of visibility combined with a little bit of dirty air can just make it so much more challenging to get moves done. And this is very much a one-lane sort of racetrack. You know, there's one lane that you take through the corner, and that's the quickest way to go. There's no real... You can't be too creative as a driver around here. You either get the line or you don't. And you know, I know from experience, we've raced here at an esports level several times over the years, between, you know, the Porsche Esports Super Cup and the IMSA Global Esports Championship as well. Thankfully, in the IMSA Championship, we did very well around here, and the lines for me that year clicked very nicely. But yeah, when I came here in the Esports Super Cup, it's just one of those circuits that either makes sense in your head or it doesn't, and it's a hard one to describe. It's just such a unique challenge with you know, the corners like the corkscrew and all the undulations and positive, negative, the cambered corners. It will always be a staple in motorsport for one of the most challenging circuits, whether it's sim racing or real life.
Just, it doesn't feel like any real race I've ever... And I've now had the opportunity to work 2 weekends at Laguna Seca. I mean, this last IMSA weekend, we had 3 cars roll on Saturday. One in our Mustang Challenge down at Rainy Curve. There was a bit of a questionable move down onto the inside by one car, and it spat someone out onto the outside tire wall. And then in the actual Michelin Pilot Challenge part of proceedings, we rolled a Supra. that was, again, tire bundle assisted. But we also rolled one of the TCR Cupras, so it's a track that just I'm baffled that we've been able to get away with minimal issues. Remember, we've had a couple. Into the graph having the spin down at turn 3, nowhere really for Ole Gunnar Stensrud to go. He was amongst the first to pit. What that probably does mean now, Kevin, is he, on the 16th lap of his stint, is going to be the first to come down to pit lane and hope to get to the end.
Yeah, as you mentioned, that pit window is opening fairly soon, but just to go back to what you were saying about cars flipping over, it's got me thinking as Alfredo Malo hits pit lane, so that short middle stint that we were anticipating is shown true. Havard Mullikson's on pit lane as well, so we'll see what kind of traffic they come out into, but I am curious what circuit has the most damage bills attributed to it, because that would be really interesting to see. I imagine they're going to say it's somewhere in the top half, that's for sure.
It's probably up there. I was commentating on something at Fuji this weekend, and they had some really weird things going on, including that the drivers actually weren't allowed radio communication with their teams. So there's all sorts of quirks in real motorsport, and I'm sure there's tracks like the Nordschleife where you have to pay for damage to the barriers itself. There's all sorts of things that tracks will charge you for too. So I guess the question is, which track will also charge you the most for having a crash at their facilities? Franek Sikorsky has avoided all of those crashes, and I've got to say, AM driver, at some point, some are going to question, especially the rest of his AM competition, if he should be made part of the pro field. It's going to continue ticking out there on track, though, and saving and sipping on the fuel as Ivani, our race leader in that very distinctive Ugly Frog Racing number 13, trundles down pit lane for the final time in this race.
Yeah, it's interesting. They only actually went a lap longer than Alfredo in that stint. So, yeah, clearly the fuel loads were similar. Of course, Malo went a lap longer in that first stint compared to Ivani, and then stopped a lap earlier. So only a 2-lap difference in fuel load, which is probably why the gap didn't really change a huge amount. Of course, there's a little bit of difference there in terms of the weight of the fuel, but yeah, clearly not enough to influence the lap times enough. So yeah, Malo's in a bit of traffic at the moment. He's been a couple lambs. Gabriel Berger's going to be the first one in his way. He'll be hoping that Yevon Seco will get out of the way before he gets there to try and maintain that P2 that he's got at the moment. But for T. Ryan and Sikorsky, they'll be aware of the fact that Malo's in traffic, so this is the key part of the stint. I assume we will see these two down to pit lane this lap, but if any of them go longer, that could be dangerous for Alfredo Malo. He could be looking at losing P2 here.
You need that clean air. That's for certain. Here we go. Take us to pit lane, but Sikorsky continuing to drive a absolutely stellar race. He will inherit the overall lead once again, while Christopher Tavarian be next to pit from the front of the field. Now, where is that going to drop him into, and how long does he end up sitting stationary? If for Alfredo Malo it was 10.3 seconds, it's going to be it's still going, 11.5 seconds for Tavarian. Alfredo Malo going to be comfortably, of course, through. He's also made his way through on Gabriel Berger, and so now a 3.7 second deficit to our net leader of the race. Cat got my tongue there.
I'm surprised Malo didn't actually lose more time than that. He's only lost about half a second over that entire pit cycle, so not disastrous. It means that he might still be safe from Franek Sikorsky, but of course, yeah, don't be fooled by the AM tag next to his name. He's not been short of pace or race management at all this race. So yeah, as you mentioned earlier, I think there's definitely going to be some questions asked about Sikorsky being in that AM category, because it's clear that he's more than quick enough to keep up with the pros as we see him hit pit lane for his last stop, as James Barry stays out for another lap. So Barry's going for the insanely long overcut, so he's going to have a very, very short stop at the end. It'll be interesting to see if he can get himself into the top 5 after this.
But again, trying something different, which is not always the worst thing in the world. Sometimes you come up with the better strategies than by following the status quo. Kurakopoulos, Larson, both shy of 9.5 seconds, but Larson hits the pit exit first. He'll drop down, and as they punch themselves back onto the power, just in front of Harvard Gullikson. It's worked nicely for the both of them. Gullikson once running up in second, now going to be outside of the top 5 once things have cycled through.
Yeah, the gaps have all sort of extended quite a bit recently over the last 10-15 minutes or so. And as you say, there's quite a lot of cars in close proximity, but no actual side-by-side racing at the moment. So, yeah, Sikorsky is out just ahead of Gabriel Berger, who, of course, is yet to pit. So, yeah, Sikorsky 4.2 behind Malo. So, I think, yeah, it's looking pretty safe for Alfredo Malo. As you see our 2 leaders eventually come into pit lane. Barry, Kim Andre, Bjorklund as well. I assume Jorge Gonzago is staying out. So, yeah, he continues to carry on. The longest stint of anyone, unless Gabriel Berger stays out as well. He's hit the pit lane. So, yeah, Jorge Gonzaga going for the longest middle stint of anyone. And his final stop is going to be very, very short. He only needs fuel for around 9.5 minutes by the time he hits pit lane.
So it's going to be a splash and dash for him. See how short it ends up being. Berger stationary for about 8.1 seconds. That's just confirming on the timing. That much shorter than someone like Franek Sikorsky, who came in a lap ago. So maybe about 7 seconds. What Jorge Gonzaga is going to need at the front of the field, as he only 2 and a bit seconds in front of Peter Ivanjai. Leads at the front, but only momentarily. What a drive it's been. Just continuing to pace the field after punching in the time to put it on pole. Ugly Frog Racing 13 looking very balanced as we hit the final 10 minutes of this first race.
Yeah, it's just been an absolute clinic of control, really. Got a really strong start, of course. Our P2 starter of Kyriakopoulos didn't get off the line well at all, so it gave him a nice bit of breathing room into T1, and since then he's really not sort of looked back. But at the moment, he's seen his first car in a while of Jorge Gonzaga. He's catching him at not a rate of knots, I would say. I think Gonzaga's pace is fairly decent out front at the moment with that clean air, but yeah, he's stayed out yet again. So yeah, Gonzaga's clearly confident. He's absolutely brimmed the tank in that first pit stop, and this last stint is, yeah, as you say, he's not going to need about 6.5, 7 seconds of fuel, I think. So it'd be interesting to see where he comes out. I'd be interested to see where he was before the second set of stops began, and see where he ends up afterwards to see if that strategy has worked or not.
Back up underneath the bridge and through the left. No one really finding turn 6 too much of a difficulty. Into the corkscrew. Brighton looking feisty at the back of this shot. He's closed in on Severian and Barry pretty quickly. Jorge Gonzaga, I wonder if part of the reason why he went 14.8 seconds, is he trying to cut a pit stop out of this race?
I'm not good enough at maths to know if that's even possible, but if he's trying it, then fair play, because that would be, yeah, a really, really good decision to cut out an entire pit stop. It looks like if they can pull it off, it's definitely going to be a net gain from where he was. Of course, this is a circuit where we've seen all day, we've spoken about, it's hard to overtake. So, yeah, I mean, if he can defend for his life and still hit that fuel number, then he could be in with a shot of winning here. I mean, it'd be frustrating for James Barry, because he'll be waiting for Gonzaga to hit pit lane so that James can get into the top 4. But if this is an attempted one stop from Jorge, I'd be absolutely amazed to see if he can hang on over Peter Vanyu.
I don't think that was necessarily the hope, but So far, he's trending in the right direction. 7 minutes left on the clock. Still no exit stage pit lane. He's continuing to tick himself around this just shy of 2-mile track. While James Barry, Tavarian, and Rattanen still very much at arm's length for the time being. This has been a very clean race, which often does mean it's one of those races, like Kevin, you were mentioning earlier, where it can be difficult to pass, difficult to get alongside and really make something happen. Alfredo Malo in these closing stages has already taken 6/10 out of the race lead in the last lap or two.
Yeah, it's beginning to close up, and yeah, you've really got me thinking. I'm just sitting here trying to do the math in my head if Gonzaga can make it, because as we see Stensrud off the road, so his days clearly not getting any better. At the moment he's currently down in 18th place, and then a bit of no man's land, so yeah, he'll be off to the LCQ after this. But for now, I wouldn't take my eyes off this, because this could be a really interesting finish. I wonder if Ivanyi is starting to second guess his maths.
We'll find out. He is starting to be closed in on without a shadow of a doubt by Alfredo Malo. And still not closing up to Jorge Gonzaga. This is one of the more peculiar ways to end a 45-minute race. No shortage of drama. Franek Sikorsky still leads in AM, with Ryan Stringer sitting second, as Gonzaga, a small moment down at the Andretti hairpin, and suddenly the Ugly Frog Racing 13 is going to be all over him down at turn 3. Start to climb the hill, and if there was any fuel saving still needed, well, it's gone out the window.
Oh, that was not the time for a mistake. I don't know if that lap car just put him off a little bit, or if he's looking just staring at the fuel number. But for Jorge Gonzaga, that is a critical mistake. He had 2 seconds of breathing room, so that if he is a tiny bit short on fuel and the car starts to cough coming to the line, he had that buffer there, but he doesn't have that now. So he's got to be absolutely certain that he's got enough fuel to get to the line without any coughing, because yeah, Ivanyi is now right on the tail, but you can see just how much that gap has increased. I mean, Ivanyi got within about 2 or 3 tenths in the first half of the lap, and already it got out over half a second there through the corkscrew. He's beginning to close it back up a little bit, so it's now back under half a second, but nowhere close to making a move. Let's stay on board with Ivanyi. Let's see if Gonzaga is lift coasting. Any likelihood whatsoever. Nothing obvious, I will be honest. That's it looks like Gonzaga's definitely committed to a one-stop.
Interesting. Very interesting. In the IMSA Airbnb Endurance Challenge I was commentating on yesterday, we had a team that totally saw something different in the pit stop regulations. Same story here, where Jorge Gonzaga seen something totally different in the fuel numbers, and he could be 3 laps away from striking magic. The problem is, it's going to be 3 very anxious laps down through the corkscrew once again for the anti-penultimate time. In through Rainy Curve, the long left-hander. If you're going to pit, you'll leave it as late as possible. It could be on the last lap as well.
Yeah, we just don't know. Oh, he hits pit lane. He's not got the fuel to do the one stop. That's absolutely gutting for Jorge Gonzaga. I was really hoping he'd actually pulled off a strategic masterclass there and was going to do the one stop, but no, he's hit pit lane. So that mistake that cost him 2 seconds, now is going to sting a little bit more, because there's of course now track position to take into account. So on the plus side, it puts Sikorsky onto the overall podium, which he'll be absolutely delighted with, and James Barry up into P4 as well. So that's not a bad recovery drive from him. He's not made any moves on track that I've seen, but it's been all strategic, so he's played that well. But now, Ivanyi will be sweating a little bit, because Malo is only 4 tenths back. But as we've seen so far in this race today, that seems to be about as close as anyone can get. It's about 3 tenths behind, and then the combination of visibility and dirt air just holds you at around 4 tenths behind. It's going to need a mistake from Ivanyi, which, yeah, we've not seen yet today. So let's see if he's got another 2 minutes of driving left in him, but they can keep it mistake-free.
Feel for Gonzaga, it's worked out okay for him. He's back in front of Ryan Stringer. So he will advance to the feature race. That's the main priority. It hasn't allowed any of the AMs to get a little bit closer. And speaking of that little bit closer, it will be 2 laps to go this time by Kim-Andre Bjorklund and Sauli Rattinen fighting for 6th and 7th positions. But the fight for the lead is all but up for grabs right now. It's going to take something brave from Alfredo Malo. It's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass. Look at another one of the Ugly Frog racing machines pushing the issue down to the Andretti hairpin. Long way around for Sauli Rattinen. He cuts back underneath as someone else snatches the left front brake behind him. Seesaw out of the corner. No positions, change hands.
Yeah, it's all very active down in T2 and 3 now. You can see the cars starting to move around a little bit. Of course, we saw it a couple laps ago with Jorge Gonzaga. We've now seen a big moment from Bjorklund, and I believe that was a lock-up for Kjetil Larsen that you mentioned before as well. So, yeah, these guys are starting to struggle now. Of course, they don't take tyres in these pit stops, so these tyres have been 45 minutes, which round here is no mean feat. Is that a move into the kink? Surely not. Oh my goodness, that is tight. And you see a big crash behind for Kjetil Larsen. He's off.
Straight into the tires and then back to pit lane. That is one of the scariest places to have a big incident. 1 lap left to go. That fight for 6th position still left to be settled, and the white flag finally in hand. Ivan Yahi's got 1 more lap to hold on around the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna. Seca, the championship leader, hot on his heels as they drop down into the hairpin for the final time.
I'll tell you who's going to have a big smile on his face will be Mika Hulkkonen, because Kjetil Larsen is still not going anywhere. He's buried in a tyre bundle, so that will drop him into the LCQ, which he'll be absolutely devastated about. A lap and a half to go, and he's had a monumental shunt. So, yeah, I'm not sure what happened there actually. There's a slam of the brakes from Raitinen as he pulled to the inside, and that looks a bit strange from Kjetil Larsen.
You would hope it's either some sort of technical issue or something else, but yeah, it looks a bit awkward. Final time, sorry Kevin, down into the Zanardi corkscrew, and there will be no last lap heroics from Alfredo Malo. He's aware that championships require consistency, and 2nd place sometimes is good enough. We've still got a long way to go in the Radical European Sim Racing Championship. And with the points leader sat behind, it allows Peter Ivan Yahi for Ugly Frog Racing out of the final corner to win the heat race at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Behind, we wait for the rest of the cars to finish up. Franek Sikorsky 3rd on the road, best of the AMs. It's going to be a wait and some chopping and changing. Ryan Stringer slow on this final lap. It's promoted Luke Crowley, Evan Zeko up slightly, Gabriel Berger, and like you called out, Kevin, Mika Hulkkonen going to be the big winner from the moment for Kjetil Larsen, and he'll move forward directly.
I think he's out of fuel, Ryan Stringer. Looking at that, unless he's had a crash on that last lap, but yeah. He'll be absolutely gutted with that. It'd be interesting to see is he in the top 15.
Definitely was out of fuel. He has just crossed the line in time, so yes, he will be in the top 15. Ivan Yahi and Malo, just a couple of tenths cover the 2 of them. And behind, Sikorsky, Barry, Taveri, and Bjorklund, Rattinen, Kyriakopoulos, Gullikson, Gonzaga. That's the top 10, 24 seconds splitting them. And then Crowley, Zeko, Berger, Stringer, who actually slots in behind Hulkkonen. Then Friedland, Stensrud, Statsgaard, Larsen, de Graaf, and Gullikson. Well, 6 cars then getting ready to go for the consolation race. It's going to be 15 minutes, and Friedland, Stensrud on the front row, Statsgaard and Larsen split row 2, the only of the pro drivers, by the way, in the field. Menno de Graaf, Oleg Gullikson, and then from this 6 that will enter, only 2 will move forward. Small numbers. Let's see what happens, Kevin.
Yeah, if you're a betting man, you've got to put money on Kjetil Larsen to get this done. Although it's difficult to overtake around here, you've got to just assume that the pro should at least make the top two. But we never know. Of course, we saw what looked to be a technical fault in the first race, so let's hope he's got that mended for this one. He doesn't have any further problems.
6 cars, but you only need 2 to tango and to put on a fight. So let's see what will happen as just the seconds tick away. All 6 already on the grid, but we'll get a full 2 minutes, Kevin, for these drivers to sit and to think about the run down to the opening corner.
Yeah, you've got to try and get to the inside if you can. The outside through the first braking zone, never exactly favourable at the circuit. It's just that the corner's too long, too much grip on the inside from the rubber being put down. So yeah, as you say, they've got a while to sit and think about things, but don't think too much, because that is when mistakes start to creep in. But we can start to hear the res build now, I think, so hopefully not too long then until we can get these 6 out on track and see what 2 are going to make it through to the final.
What they could do right now is start burning off some fuel, although risk of that is you overheat the oil. So risk versus reward, especially important. It sounds like, given that we're in the month of May and all the fun shenanigans that go on for Indy qualifying. Here we go, and a view from 6th position as Ole Gullikson is back in the fight. Decent start from him in the bright pink as well. Radical SR10s far down over the crest of turn 1 and into the Andretti hairpin. Only 15 minutes to race. Kjetil Larsen to be careful not to get tangled up with any of these AM drivers. He wants to be racing with the contingent of pros in the main event. He slides his way forward to 3rd. That's 1 spot picked up. Remember, top 2 move forward to the feature.
Yep, he'll be happy with that. Up 1 place, he got off the line well. That was a good initial start from Larsen. So yeah, he's got the front 2 in his sights. They look to be trying to go side by side. Not that I would advise it at this point in the lap, but he's within touching distance here, so if he can just stay close, as we see both cars go wide, and there's his opportunity, as that's Stensrud off the road, and I think his chances of making the final are as good as done now.
Thank you very much, as I think the message that was probably being sent as Kjetil Larsen slides through and now sits behind Lars-Erik Fridlund as we'll end the first lap of what is an estimated 12 here, so another 11 to avoid making a mistake. At turn 6, just a little bit too hot. It's a blind entry into a corner, even when you don't have someone you're following, and Stensrud got very lucky. You saw that second wiggle off to the right, Kevin, almost sent him into the tires.
Yeah, there's a sort of, it looks a bit like a drain, as we see Frydenlund making mistakes, so Kjetil Larsen, he kind of asked for it to be much easier than that. He's straight into P1 and eyes forward now, drive away, and that's him in the final. So yeah, there's almost like a drain out there. So as if driving on the gravel wasn't hard enough, when you hit that sort of bump, it's enough to pull the car over to the right hand side, which I think is what's happened with Stensrud. So yeah, it just went from bad to worse for him really in that corner, as we see losing a spot, is that, with Severin Sjöstad coming back through the field. So yeah, change for 4th position, I believe.
Still going to be some fighting behind, there is no question about that. And especially if there's noises that indicate trouble down to the corkscrew. René de Graaf goes on offense down through Rainy Curve as Kjetil Larsen breaks away up front. 12.5 minutes left to settle this. 12.5 minutes to avoid making a mistake. And place yourself and defend that 2nd spot on the road. A little bit of a wiggle from Stjatsad behind. Gullikson and Stensrud in close pursuit, but all 6 of our cars still within 5 seconds as we end the 2nd lap of this race. A couple of half-hearted attempts. Gullikson will drop to the tail end of the field.
Yeah, I've just thought this race is a bit reminiscent of the 2005 Indianapolis GP, with just the 6 cars going round, but no shortage of excitement, that's for sure. We've had an active first couple of laps, and yeah, it looks like René de Graaf actually is the stronger of the 2, between him and Freidenwald at the moment, so we could yet see a battle and a change for our advancers into the final. So of course Graf as well will be eager to show what he's capable of. We didn't really get to see much of him in the first race besides the 2 spins and of course the damage that he got. So yeah, I keep on hearing a crunch through corkscrew. I keep on thinking that Kjetil Larsen's gone off again, but it must just be the car compressing into the circuit and that splitter really slamming the ground. That gives you a bit of an idea of just how much undulation and how much torture these cars actually go through just throughout the course of a lap round here.
Yeah, we saw the small spin slightly earlier, didn't we, as well? When I was talking to some of the Mustang Challenge drivers, they did say that, you know, you come down through the corkscrew and you got to be careful. You don't time things up correctly. You put the weight in the wrong place and it can be uncomfortable. It's tight down to turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. A bit too tight for Menno de Graaf to pull alongside and slip through into one of those transfer positions, but 10 minutes rather. Still left to go. Brake shot tucked under the shoulder of Friedland as power down. Hook the left and now climb the hill once more. Menno de Graaf had a very difficult heat race, but this is sometimes the good thing about an LCQ, isn't it, Kevin? If you had a bad main race, you get a chance to fight back, and that's exactly what de Graaf is doing here.
Yeah, I quite like the format that they've got in this championship, actually. It's quite good. You know, you get the qualifying session, then the first race is sort of the big one in regards to length and strategy. So if you do have an instant qualifying, you can still recover it through strategy and a slightly longer race. So yeah, everyone's got an opportunity to get themselves into that top 15, and then the LCQ, of course, is just an all-out brawl for 15 minutes to try and get yourself into that final, and then of course in the final it's going to be more of the same with yeah, just an all-out brawl to try and bring home the overall win. But you know, as we're seeing here, Menno de Graaf has the pace, but again struggling to get any kind of side-by-side really going. The defense from Friedland has been good enough, just simply block off the inside, force him to the outside, and that's been enough so far to keep him at bay.
Getting a bit of a preview of what to expect for the main event in terms of number of laps, how cars are going to behave, also what our drivers are going to end up doing. So 2.8 seconds the gap between first and second, maybe likely to see something similar in terms of the pace difference between the pros and AMs. The one issue for Kjetil Larsen here, Kevin, is he's going to start at the tail end of the field. All the drivers that make it through directly from the first heat will be gridded up in front of these two, so he's going to have some work to do to pick his way through the AMs.
Yeah, of course, it's all well and good making the final, but of course, as you say, he's got to start from the tail end of the field. So yeah, he'll be happy to get through this LCQ and keep his night going just a little bit longer, but I'm sure as soon as he hits the grid and that final race, he's going to have a slight sigh of disappointment and realise the monumental hill he's got to climb to try and score some really solid points in that final. But you know, it's better to be on the grid and circulating than not be there at all. So he'll just be looking back at that first race and just really be kicking himself for what happened, whether it was his fault or not. But yeah, the important thing is he's kept his head, he's been able to reset mentally, and started, I think, P4 here, and he's got himself to the lead within the first 2 laps, and he's managed to drive away and keep it stress-free for himself. So yeah, he's maintained a little bit of mental energy as well, as Freudenland's off in the corkscrew, and Menno de Graaf does not need a second invitation. That is him as good as through into the final now.
The opportunity was there after the pressure was applied. Thank you very much. And the transfer spot changes hands. That's sometimes what this sort of racing is about, though, at the end of the day. Kevin putting the pressure on and waiting for the other driver to make the mistakes, and now 7 minutes to try and avoid doing the same.
Yeah, exactly. It's the hard thing with this circuit, is it's so hard to overtake. But I was starting to notice from Freudenland, he was creeping in towards the apex earlier and earlier every single lap, and eventually it's bitten him. He's just come into the corkscrew there from the completely wrong side of the circuit and asked way too much of his front tyres. So, yep, he'll be absolutely gutted with that. He had everything under control. He was leading the race at one point. Once Kjetil Larsen got past, he had a really tough couple of laps and allowed Menno de Graaf to get within striking range. Then for a while he was able to sort of find his rhythm, keep him at arm's length, and then out of nowhere has thrown it all away. So yeah, he'll be absolutely gutted with that one. And unfortunately for us, the gaps have extended a little bit, so it looks as if it's going to finish how it looks just now, barring any major incident.
So 6 minutes left on the clock. Some of these drivers now, their eyes and attention may already start to look forward to our next race in a couple of weeks' time. I say a couple of weeks, it's on June the 7th, so make that close to a full month. But the Adelaide Street Circuit, Kevin, I mean, coming from Mugello and Spa as the first 2 rounds of the championship, then Brands Hatch, Laguna and Adelaide, it's a pretty stark contrast in terms of the tracks we've been able to race at in this first half of the year.
Yeah, there's no shortage of curveballs this season, I'll say that much. Yeah, Adelaide will be interesting in these cars. I can't imagine them being too pleasant to drive around there with some of the curbing that you have to use. Admittedly, I haven't done a lap of Adelaide since the track released on iRacing, so who knows? Maybe I'll get a few laps in these radical cars before the next race and see if I can't learn something. But yeah, it's going to be another one where overtaking is difficult. I would actually argue there's probably more opportunity at Adelaide than there is here to overtake, especially into the last corner. That's a big invitation for a dive bomb into there. But yeah, I mean, I guess time will tell. These guys have got a while to start practicing and really get on top of it. So let's see how it goes.
I guess the thing with Adelaide is you've also got to survive some of the curbs and whatnot they have there, so by no means the easiest task in the world. Kjetil Larsen's done a good job to put aside the issue in the heat race, spearing himself off the track down at turn 6 and turning things around. At the very least, he'll have a chance to fight back in the 15-minute main event that's coming up just after this race. Probably another 3 laps to go after this one. It's a fixed setup competition, if I remember correctly, or at the very least they capped the fuel capacity. It's one of those 2. So what you're probably doing right now, Kevin, is maybe just trying out a few different things, maybe trying out a few different lines down to turn 1. The reason is because on the start it's going to be maximum offense for Kjetil Larsen and whoever joins him in the main event.
Yeah, he's got to just commit into turn 1 and hope that there's a bit of an incident in front of him to gain some places. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good point. If Kjetil Larsen is getting a bit bored out front, it's definitely worth just entering turn 1 from the far left-hand side. See what kind of brake markers you've got at your disposal, because that's something that people don't really tend to think about when they're practicing for an event, is the braking point for turn 1 when when you're braking from the opposite side of the circuit. So yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows? He's probably just driving around at the moment, just thanking his lucky stars he's survived, and all he can do really in the final is just hope.
We'll say drivers in sim racing are a bit more fortunate than some of their real-world counterparts, Kevin, because the unlimited practice time, it's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? Because the curse is that you can practice 23 hours a day if you only wanted to sleep for 1 hour a day. But the blessing is, unlike in the real world, where there are some drivers who will only get 30 minutes of practice before they go out for a race, sometimes maybe 1 lap before you go out and qualify a car, there's no excuse to not knowing the track going into a race weekend.
Yeah, there's absolutely positives and negatives. I mean, for us drivers, it's a positive, because if you are lacking pace early in the week, you've got enough time to try and recover it and get yourself competitive. But of course, from a viewer standpoint and everything else, we've seen it many times at the esports level where the gaps are just so tight that it's actually very difficult to make any moves happen because everyone's just running the same lap times. So yeah, I don't know if there's something needs to change, especially at an esports level where you try and limit practice. But I mean, that's been a conversation for the last decade, as long as I've been doing it anyway. And the only people who have really been able to figure that out are VCO, by just not telling anyone what the track is until about 2 days before the race. So, but even then, it doesn't really do much. You know, everyone's so quick nowadays and gets up to speed so quickly that you could give them an hour's notice or a week's notice that the results will probably be much the same.
So what I'm getting from that is you'd have no complaints if we did only tell you an hour before.
I would probably complain about it. I think most people probably would, but no, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's just one of those things that sim racing is always going to have differently to real life motorsport. You know, real life motorsport has their mechanical failures. We thankfully don't, and we've got unlimited practice time, and real life doesn't. I mean, I think with sim racing, you know, they try and compare it as close to real life motorsport as possible, but there's definitely aspects to sim racing that we should embrace and really capitalize on. And you know, like the fact that every time you hit grid, you know, that everyone's cars are the same. You know, everyone's got the same amount of horsepower, same tires, same everything. You know, that's something that you can never get in real life. So yeah, I don't know. There's loads of arguments either way. I think, yeah, there's plenty of aspects of sim racing we need to celebrate a bit more, and rather than trying to water them down to match what real life has.
I thought I was going to try and trap you there, but masterfully done to extricate yourself from the situation. On to the final lap here. Kjetil Larsen's done, well, really what was asked from him, and it's about all he could do. Started down in 4th position and very quickly picked his way to the front. Menno de Graaf, also, after a disappointing heat race, has been able to put that all aside. They've got one more job to do after surviving this last chance qualifier, and that's race in the main event. 15 more minutes of action here in the Radical Sim Racing European Championship. 4th round of the season, closing in on the halfway mark, and Kjetil Larsen punches his ticket to the main event. Menno de Graaf across the line joins him as well. So 1 Pro, 1 AM move forward. I'm sure for some of the AM drivers, they would have been expecting to have been fighting just amongst themselves, but the reality is that if Kjetil Larsen had qualified automatically, then it would have just been one more of the Yams in the mix here to steal that spot from them. Kevin, they've got a couple of weeks to go off regroup, and for those that missed out on main event action, hope to move forward when we go racing at Adelaide.
It's going to be a great week, sorry, at Adelaide. Interesting to see how that race goes, but yeah, Kjetil Larsen will be happy with that. He's got through, no dramas, fastest lap, 6.3 seconds clear. Can't ask for much more than that, but yeah, as we spoke about earlier, he's got this main race coming up now. He's going to be buried back there with a lot of the AM drivers, and yeah, he's going to be slightly frustrated, but you know, we've got a battle between Peter Ravagni and Alfredo Malo to look forward to, so I would say we're in for a good one.
I think this could be quite close. No pit stops needed, and so at this point, whatever happens through that opening corner, it's all bets are off after that. It's not like we've seen today, a track where it's easy to make your moves, but maybe in these last 15 minutes, a bit more aggression. And we're also seeing these drivers very closely matched in terms of times, Kevin, and that's part of why it's difficult to pass. When you kind of have a lack of heavy braking zones, there's maybe 2 really big zones here to turn 1, and you know, maybe up to the corkscrew in the final corners as well, so 2 or 3. If you're not close enough to sling a move up the inside, you can't really then pass anywhere else.
Yeah, it's a nature of the circuit. It's just not one that lends itself to wheel-to-wheel racing, not in sim racing anyway. So yeah, these guys they'll be frustrated, you know, especially for the guys further down that feel like they're slightly quicker than where they qualified. They'll be really agitated because the opportunities just don't really come to you at all around here. The track doesn't lend itself to wheel-to-wheel racing, but as we say that, big bomb up the inside, and there you can see that is why it's so difficult to make him move. He went for one up the inside, locked an inside front, and he's straight back to where he was. So yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe we're wrong. Maybe this next race there's an influx of overtaking and too much side by side that we can't even cover it. But I'm confident to say that once we complete the first lap, after that it's going to be yeah, going to be trying to brush water uphill, I think, trying to get a move done here.
So initial race start going to be crucial, but that is always the case. There is never any question about that. 30 seconds for the drivers who are watching on from the sidelines to get their final preparations complete. And then we will get 15 minutes on the clock, a look through our starting grid, and fire our green flag for the final time tonight. Arjuna Kankipati alongside of Kevin Ellis Jr. Thanks for your company. Plenty more Radical Sim Racing coverage to come, of course, on RaceSpotTV in the next couple of weeks as the official championship continues to roll through. Of course, the Americas Cup will be racing at Laguna Seca later tonight, slightly different format, and they go racing at Montreal between us and our next European sim racing round at Adelaide, or building up to World Finals action at the end of this year. Quick look at the grid. Peter Ivanyayi and Alfredo Malo on the front row, with Franek Sikorsky the best of the AMs, alongside of James Barry. Christopher Tverian and Kim-Andre Bjorklund 5th and 6th, in front of Sauli Rattanen and Dennis Kirakopoulos. Harvard Gullikson and Jorge Gonzaga 9th and 10th. See Luke Crowley and Yevon Seca the next best of the AMs behind them, with Gabriel Berger, Mika Henrik Hulkinen, Ryan Stringer, Keto Larsen and Menno de Graaf, your 17 getting slotted in and ready to go. Another 12 laps or so. Track temperature has creeped up slightly, Kevin, but not by much. It's still pretty good conditions to go racing.
Yeah, I'm not sure the race will be too long enough, or will be long enough, sorry, to really have too much of an effect on the tires. But who knows? Let's hope for the best. I mean, the higher the track temp, the more likely there is that there's going to be a mistake, as we have a car missing off the grid. So we're about to go green.
Let's find out what happens. Main event time from the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in the Radical Sim Racing European Championship. Can Peter Ivanyahi hold on? But no, he's been absolutely swamped on the drop down into the Andretti hairpin. He's alongside of his teammate Sauli Rattanen. It means Alfredo Malo will lead down in through turn 2, and out getting ready to start the climb up, James Barry on the inside of Kim-Andre Bjorklund in the slightly checkered car. Bjorklund gets sideways, tagged by one of those ugly frog racing cars, and into the kitty litter on the left side of the track. So much separation, so many cars missing the starting grid. Absolute chaos to kick things off.
I'm not sure what's happened on lap 1 here. Ivanyi got off to an absolutely shocking start. He just didn't really move. I think he's missed the bite point on the clutch, and he's fallen back, and then to make matters worse, Kim-Andre Bjorklund has been spun around right in front of him as he tried to stay at the back of James Barry. So, wow, Ivanyi will be absolutely devastated. But yeah, as you mentioned, there's a car gone off in the corkscrew there, actually. That's Franek Sikorsky's off. So that's an unfortunate mistake from him after such a strong showing earlier. As right front wheel missing. I think there's damage on Sikorsky. That right front wheel doesn't look right.
Meatball,
as he's
you are
around the
right.
last corner. Yep, he's been spun around in the last corner, so it's all gone from bad to worse for Sikorsky. That right front wheel is not attached properly, and as you say, there's several cars missing off the grid as well.
Yeah, that is going to require him to head to pit lane, so all the speed won't be realized into a good finish at the end of this race. Alfredo Malo mirrors filled with James Barry, who was checked up on the edge of the top 10 for much of the heat race. Now a very different situation that he finds himself in. Let's take a look here. Down into the braking zone at the last corner. Now he's already... Well, the right front seems to have reappeared on that shot, but albeit at a very jaunty angle. This is down at turn 3. Gonzaga gets spat out wide. after going long in the middle stint of the heat race earlier today.
Yeah, a couple guys with really tricky opening laps, but yeah, Sikorsky's right front was definitely, well, I would say the camber and toe angles did not look within reasonable limits. I'll put it that way. Yeah, he's definitely running a modified right front, so something's happened to him earlier in the lap that has led to that. I think that's potentially why he's gone off on the corkscrew. If he's got right front damage, or potentially he's got that damage from going off on the corkscrew and the wall. So let's see if we can get a replay of, see if we can find what happened to him. He's in pit lane now, so clearly, yeah, as you mentioned, he had a meatball, so he's got to serve that now. And unfortunately, after such a strong opening race, it's all gone wrong for him in the feature.
Speculation, but you know, the corkscrew is a place where if you drop down awkwardly, you could rip the suspension and damage that wheel. So I wouldn't be shocked if it was just related to that, because we did see in the live picture, small, when it happened, that he had gone off and I think even hit the tire wall. So I think Franek Sikorsky in and out of pit lane. Fast repairs are available, so that is always a helping hand in these races. You'll salvage some championship points, which will very much be at the forefront of his mind as the AM leader. Fredo Malu, James Barry, Rattanen, Kyriakopoulos, and then Ivan Yahi, who's not completely out of this, Kevin. And the best of the AMs now is Gavin Zeko with Gabriel Berger right up his gearbox.
Just to go back to Sikorsky, that'll be his saving grace, is one, the fast repair, and two, the fact that there's 4 cars still missing from this race, despite the 17 that we had on the starting list. There's only 13 currently circulating, and of course we did see a couple cars missing on the starting grid from further up. So yeah, at the moment the battle for the AM lead is spicing up as Seca makes a mistake out of turn 3. That opens up to Gabriel Berger, but as we've seen all afternoon, defend the inside, and typically you're okay, but it's looking close. I mean, I definitely think Sikorsky, if he can fire in some quick laps and these guys start scrapping, it's very easy to lose a lot of time around here. So you can see the top 3 all within 3/10.
So about 5 minutes complete. 10 still to go here at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And that AM fight, Mika Hulkkonen sneaked into the main event after the issue for Ketil Larsen. And now making the most of that, running in the top 10 overall right now. Back through the final sector. Gabriel Berger getting a little bit closer in the white and orange. Not close enough to throw the lunge up the inside of the braking zone into the final corner. Gonzaga and Bjorklund, the 2 pro cars, they may insert themselves into this fight in the next 9.5 minutes. Gabriel Berger has that sense of urgency, showed himself in the inside mirror. Even Zeko actually covered him off down into the braking zone. These drivers losing time now to the pros in front pulling away.
Yeah, these guys are about to start scrapping heavy, and I just want to circle back to what we saw at the end of the first race with Ryan Stringer running out of fuel before the line. He attempted the 1-stop. That is why he ran out of fuel on the final lap. He went for it, not realizing that it's a mandatory 2-stop. So yeah, Ryan Stringer's one of the cars that's missing from this race, Ketil Larsen being the other, and there's 2 more that I'm still trying to piece together at the moment. I'm trying to put the pieces together and see what's actually happened. So I'm not sure if Ryan Stringer's maybe been disqualified or something, or has some kind of penalty for not taking that second pit stop. But yeah, not sure what's happened to Ketil Larsen or the other 2 either. So yeah, a bit of a head scratcher with 8 minutes to go. This battle for the AM lead is looking pretty spicy.
Thanks for that, Kevin. That's good. Excuse me, I missed that in the rulebook that it was a mandatory 2-stop. 8 minutes to go. Gabriel Berger now looking a bit more defensive because Luke Crowley very close as they come out of the Andretti hairpin. And the black and pink Radical SR10 plenty of power in these cars, and as Tom Dura introduced them to me, they are meant to be an introduction to slicks and wings through the radical pyramid of cars. The SR10, one of the more powerful ones they have available. And it means as you run up into the corkscrew, you're carrying about 220, 230 kilometers an hour. It sounds a scary proposition to drop and let your stomach fall away from you as gravity does its work.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of getting strapped into one of these after having dinner. I'll put it to you that way. It's doesn't seem like a good combo, but no, they do look like good cars to drive, to be fair. I'm interested to try them out, of course on iRacing, but it's been a long time since I tried these cars. I think when they first came out, I gave them a bit of a go, and I remember them being very hard to turn while braking, but then on throttle they were very active. So yeah, they had a very locked differential, I think, probably the best way to describe it. And we've seen that today as Gabriel Berger is dropping down the field, so is Luke Crowley. I think there's been an incident with two of our AM drivers into turn number 1.
They were fighting for second in class, and what that's done is allow Jeven Seca to now have a bit of separation to Mika Hulkkonen, who goes from the back of the queue to now fighting for the lead in class. Here's the look down into that first braking zone, come over the crest of turn 1, and it really does narrow up. If you stand there in the real world, you will see it, and Luke Crowley just runs over Gabriel Berger.
Fair play to him. He pulls over, slows down, lets Gabriel Berger get back ahead, and then carries on. So yeah, clearly just an error in judgment there from Luke Crowley, but he's done the right thing. He's handed the position back, as Hulkkonen has lost a couple places now. So our man that was with 2 minutes to go of the first race wasn't even meant to be making it, to him with a shot of winning, and AM has now lost 2 more places on track. Granted, they are to the pro drivers, so no actual effect on his points as such, as he's just gone straight through the corkscrew. So we've seen that a couple times today already. Easy to do, but he carries on thankfully with no damage. He's got 4 seconds behind to Gabriel Berger. It's
gone better for him than it did for Franek Sikorsky earlier in this race. 5 minutes to go. Alfredo Malo's got 8/10 at the front of the field. I think he's comfortable right now, Kevin. We know it's difficult to pass. Everyone at this point seeming as though they're pretty settled inside of the top 5.
Yeah, I can't see much changing with their pro class in this stage. They're settled into a groove. Malo's out front just managing things. James Barry, though, he'll be happy with this. Of course, started the day in 8th place after qualifying, and quite a way down on his championship rival Malo, but he's managed to recover well. 4th in the heat race, 2nd in the feature. I think that's not bad damage limitation, especially considering Malo didn't manage to pick up the win in the heat. So yeah, obviously he'll lose points on the day overall, but to end P2 after what he was looking like in qualifying, I don't think he'll be too disheartened. But he can't let off the gas just yet. Raikkonen is getting the gap down to around 0.3 of a second, so we're seeing both ugly frog cars piling pressure onto the cars ahead, and of course we have seen Kiriakopoulos make a mistake earlier on today, so Vanyi will be hoping that he has a repeat of what he did in the first race.
Gonzaga in the pit lane. Not quite sure what that one is related to, but 4 minutes to go will mean 3 laps to go at the line. Gonzaga just getting a fast repair, it would seem, so picking up some damage somewhere on track. 3 laps for some sort of change. Everyone seeming very settled. Our points leader continuing to run at the front of the field, but remember, there are some drop rounds in the season, and now that we're getting towards the halfway point in this championship, Kevin, it does start to turn that focus to, well, maximizing your results if you are in the championship fight. You don't want to rely on your drop rounds. You'll leave yourself a little bit more buffer at the end of the season if you've got them in your back pocket.
Yeah, if you're coming into this round or you finish up today and you've got a donut on your record, that will be adding quite a bit of pressure on, because you'll know in the back of your head you can't afford to have another one. So yeah, if you get to the halfway point of the season with a good chunk of points under your belt, then you know that in the second half of the season, if you have to get a bit aggressive, if you're falling a bit behind in the points, you can take an extra couple of risks, and if it goes wrong, oh well, you've got a drop round to sort of bail you out. But yeah, if you can finish every single race and just keep on scoring consistently, you know, into that last round, potentially just go all out, see what you can get, and if it goes wrong, it doesn't matter, you get that drop round to save you. But yeah, no donuts, that's the rule.
2 minutes to go. 2 laps left. Alfredo Malo's gap has never been more than 1.2 seconds in this race. Even the top 5 have not been separated by more than 5 seconds. Arvid Gullikson is right on the tail of the heat winner Peter Ivanyahi, who will be ruining the mistake, just not getting off the line that well and going from 1st to 5th by the time we got onto the brakes for the first time, Kevin. And that one mistake, we were talking about how important the opening lap was going to be. That one mistake has ruined his chances of the win.
Yeah, just that poor getaway put him back in the pack, and then of course Kim Andre Bjorklund then spun in front of him as well to add insult to injury. So yeah, he'll be absolutely gutted. He deserves the win, if I'm honest. I mean, he had the pace in qualifying, had the pace in the first race. I'm confident if he'd gotten off the line confidently or properly, he would have yeah, probably would have wrapped this ramp as well, just with how tricky it's been to pass all day long. But hey ho, that is how the cookie crumbles, as they say, and he's in P5, so all he can do now is hope for a mistake from Kiriakopoulos, but he needs to be careful because Havard Mulekson is not a mile away either. But if the last minute of this race is anything to go by, or based on the previous race of this afternoon, I think we're looking at our final standings.
Not much disagreement to come from me. Onto the brakes, out of the final corner. And now just under 2 miles to go once again. For Alfredo Malo to see the checkered flag and win at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. The gap's grown slightly to James Barry. That lap he pulled out about 1/10.5, did our leader. In fact, for the most part, lap times falling away as you go through the field. Even Zeko in comfortable spot to hold on to the AM class lead as well. Mika Hulkkonen never able to get close enough after those pro cars got between him and his AM rival.
Evan Seco will be happy with that. Yeah, he was not looking like the favourite to win in AM today, but kept his nose clean. That's all you need to do sometimes to surprise yourself with a good result. So congrats to him on what looks to be a victory in the AM class. But as we talk about him, our leader Alfredo Malo, with only 2 corners to go, is looking like he's going to extend his lead at the top of the championship.
A wonderful track this is. May have been difficult to pass, but I tell you what, these drivers will have been challenged for the 60-odd minutes of racing that most of them have been through. Alfredo Malo takes advantage of chaos at the start to win the 4th round of the Radical SimRacing European Championship at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, while even Zeko able to hold on in the AM class to top honors. Mika Hulkkonen and Gabriel Berger will sit 2nd and 3rd in class. Barry and Raitanen 2nd and 3rd in the pro class. And Kevin, these drivers now look forward to their month or so away before they return on the streets of Adelaide.
Yep, it's going to be an interesting one at Adelaide to see how these guys manage a street circuit. Of course, this is probably as close to a street circuit as you can get without having the walls an inch from the white lines. But yeah, as you say, Alfredo Malo wins the race 1.5 seconds over James Barry actually at the end there. So a strong final lap from him. And I think Sauli Raitanen will be quite happy to pick up a podium for Ugly Frog Racing after, Ivanyi's early race struggles.
So Malo, Barry, Raitanen, Kiriakopoulos, Ivanyahi, Gullikson, Seca, Bjorklund, Hulkkonen and Berger, your top 10. 3 of those cars, the AMs, Crowley, Sikorsky in front of Gonzaga. Sikorsky and Gonzaga both needing trips down pit lane. Not sure what happened to Tavarian, Larson and De Graaf, but at least with Ryan Stringer, we got some sort of word as to what happened to him. slightly slow rolling to see if we'll get a chance to catch up with any of our drivers. But Kevin, 4 rounds of the championship done, almost halfway through the season, and it's looking very, very finely poised at the top of the European Pro standings. Alfredo Malo and James Barry finishing 1 and 2 on the road. Let's see if we can catch up at the very least with James Barry standing by with Kevin Ellis Jr.
Well, James, you must be pretty happy with that, considering how qualifying went for you earlier today. Just talk us through how those couple races went for you and sort of how you're feeling after that final race.
Well, my wrists are in pain, so that's how I'm feeling, but I definitely enjoyed the racing today. Yeah, P8 at the start. I mean, it was really close margins in qualifying. I guess I just wasn't as prepared as I should have been. Wasn't ready for the track temp we had as well, so just little things that meant I was really far down from, not where I should have been, but I mean, in the races, I think I'm a good consistent racer, and I think that often shows up, so I'm really glad that I made the progress that I did. First race was just a bit about fuel, but also just about perseverance, not making any mistakes. And then the second race there, yeah, I mean, it all kicked off, didn't it? I got a tag run behind from Kim, got a cheeky 4X for him, then spinning in front of everyone, so that was nice. And then Franek decided to drive off the track. He didn't want to be in P2, and so yeah, it was quite nice in the end for me.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of damage to Sikorsky on the right front. It looks as if his right front wheel was actually on the verge of falling off, so I'm not sure if you saw anything on the first lap that maybe had led to that bit of damage. But anyway, moving forward then, looking forward to Adelaide next month, I believe on the 7th of June. How are you feeling for a street circuit to be on the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, not thinking too much about it right now, but I drove Adelaide recently in the Lotus 79s and it was very bumpy. Fun track for sure. So it's going to be a tough one, I'm sure. It's going to be even bumpier probably in this car because we're on the fixed setup, so we can't really adapt the car to the track in that way. It might be a really tough track, so let's just wait and see. It'll be a challenge. And yeah, that's all I can say at the moment.
Oh, we'll let you go and start prepping for Adelaide. But yeah, good recovery drive today. Congrats on the feature race podium, and we'll see you in Adelaide.
Yeah, cheers guys. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you.
Let's catch up with our AM winner as well. Evan Seca with us now. Yevon, an interesting race, of course. Franek Sikorsky looked to have lots of speed, but when he went off the track, it gave you a chance to hold on to the win in the AM class. How are you feeling in the U Amateurs number 70?
Well, the start was quite hectic, I would say. I still need to work on those in the feature races, which are like shorter and everyone pushes as hard as he gets. But yeah, somehow I made positions. Perhaps there were some mistakes of mine as well, but yeah, some progress was made.
Seemed like it was difficult to pass, but definitely seemed like it was easy to follow. How was it in your eyes fighting back there in the AM class?
In the AM class, after the first few laps when everything settled, everything went pretty smoothly. I was able to do some great temp. Well, for me, of course. But yeah, everything went fine and smooth, let's see.
Congratulations on the win. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for the next round of the championship.
Thanks.
So talk with second and one of our winners. But Kevin, it's been fun at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. You could hear, I think, there from Yevon, he didn't necessarily think that it was too difficult to fight. And I think that's maybe, again, the consistency, right? The difference between the pros and the AMs is the AMs are making a few more mistakes here and there and opening the opportunities for others to make their moves.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you're not 100% on the limit and there's sort of weaknesses to some corners where other guys may be a little bit stronger, then it creates more openings. You know, the faster you get, the more consistent you get, the closer to the limit you get, and then in turn the less opportunities are presented. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I mean, for the AM guys, they probably had a lot more fun there than the pro guys, that's for sure. But yeah, let's look forward to Adelaide in the 7th of June. It's going to be a good one.
So a bit of a wait for the drivers, but a chance to reflect on the first 4 rounds on this Radical Sim Racing European Championship. a great trip to the Golden Coast. The World Tour will continue, and we'll be back in action in the month of June. For Kevin Ellis Jr. alongside myself, our junior Kanky Party, our producer Ramiro controlling all the action. We'll see you next time here on RaceSpotTV with more great radical racing coverage.